The Bank of America Institute reports 75% of prospective home buyers are waiting to buy a new home until mortgage rates fall. U.S. News conducted their own separate survey and echoed those results. In fact, they report 4 in 5 home buyers, 80%, are waiting for mortgage rates to drop before buying a home in 2025. Well, if you are one of those 80%, this video is for you. Many of our buyers are active right now in the market because it's the right time for them. Others are choosing to wait, and honestly, that's smart buying. All of these are strategic buyers who have set specific criteria. They're thorough, and some of them are waiting out the market until it meets the criteria they've set. So what I want to do in this video is for those of you who are choosing to wait. I want to partner with you in strategic thinking. The Bank of America Institute brought some great insight when they asked buyers what they're doing while they wait to buy. 52% said they are continuing to save. 38% say they are paying off debts, and 20% said they are investing in stocks or bonds. Now, one thing I love here is that the options didn't include, going on an expensive vacation or, buying a more expensive car. I mean, let's face it, okay? That draws the line between the smart, strategic buyer and the spender who's lured in by vacation specials. That being said, there's more you can be doing while you wait. The very first thing I recommend is to decide on your specific buying criteria. Bring definition and quantify what your numbers are. I've had buyers tell me they're waiting for a 30% drop in prices. My question for them is, from what? What is your starting point, and from where? All right, are you talking about the US as a whole or your local area? And if you're referring to your local area, how local? DFW in general, or narrowed down to Frisco? I've also heard people say they want to see prices come down to 2019 levels. Okay, which part of 2019? Because in Dallas, prices fluctuate seasonally as much as 10% each year. And again, where are you looking for these prices? You have to bring data into this if you're going to make an objective decision. And here's why. You don't want anyone else making this decision for you. If you don't have this quantified, you run the risk of acting from changing consumer sentiment or persuasive YouTube videos. You hear the hype, or you hear, oh, Dallas is booming, or, prices are only going to go up from here. If it is truly sound, data-backed wisdom, you do want to listen to that. But again, stick to the data. If it's a 30% drop you want, pick your starting point. You may decide to revise it from time to time, but it is your standard, the one only you can make based on what's right for you. Now, chances are by now you've realized I am not the realtor you expected, and this isn't the video you expected a realtor to make. You probably expected me to say, buy now before it's too late, but that's not the realtor you've stumbled upon here. Instead, let's walk through why most buyers react too late and what smart, financially cautious buyers should actually be doing right now to avoid missing out when the market does turn. Now, we talked about defining your price criteria, but you also need to define your interest rate. When 4 out of 5 buyers are saying they are waiting for rates to come down, what specific rate are they waiting for? For example, you might say, I want to pay the median sales price in Salina from 2024 at 5% interest rate. Well, now you have put substance into what you're waiting for. You should also add in a reevaluation timeline. Is there a time by which you would like to be a homeowner? The answer may be that you are willing to rent the rest of your life if prices don't return to 2019 levels. Well, that's perfectly fine, okay? You've got an end date there. You may also decide to reevaluate your criteria in 2 years or maybe 5 years. Basically, you want to choose what variables are acceptable for you to enter the market and by what time frame you will reevaluate whether or not those variables are realistic. This should also affect your saving strategy. You don't want to commit to long-term bonds if you're willing to buy at market value as soon as rates go down to 6%. Think through the fees you would have to pay to liquidate those funds. So plan your timeline, your criteria, and then allow that to guide your savings strategy. If you are one of the 4 out of 5 waiting for rates to come down and your number is 6% interest, what will you do when rates hit that number? And what would you do if it happened next month? What if you got busy and next thing you know, it's already happened? Let's talk buyer psychology for a minute. Most buyers are not watching daily rate sheets. They're watching headlines. And headlines lag reality. By the time, CNBC runs a story titled "Mortgage Rates Fall to 5.5%," the market already reacted days or weeks ago. The best homes might already be under contract. Meanwhile, cautious buyers who wait for certainty but aren't prepared are left scrambling in a competitive mess. And this is called the reaction gap. It's the time between a real opportunity and when the general public feels comfortable enough to act. And in real estate, acting late can genuinely cost you tens of thousands of dollars. Smart buyers prepare during uncertainty so they can act during opportunity. Okay, so let me say that again so that can really sink in. Smart buyers prepare during uncertainty so they can act during opportunity. So let me give you an analogy, all right? You ready for this? Imagine you're boarding a plane. The people who sit near the gate early, they don't always get on first, but they're more likely to hear important announcements. Like they're more likely to take advantage of seat changes or even get bumped to first class. Now the ones who wait until boarding is called, okay, they rush the gate and they miss options that have already passed. Real estate is similar, right? There's no reward for being reactive. You win by being positioned. So let's talk about how you're going to be positioned. You've already done the first step, which is to get down in concrete terms under what exact conditions you will enter the market. We're talking about your personal criteria here. So let me say that again, for the people in the back. Only you can decide when it's the right time to buy. It doesn't matter the noise of everyone saying, it's always a good time to buy. Tune that out and know this is a decision only you should make. So what should you be doing right now? Well, here's a practical checklist for any buyer who wants to be ready when the opportunity comes, okay? Number one, get pre-approved now. Now, a pre-approval doesn't lock you into buying today, but it gives you a head start. So talk to a lender you trust, get your documents in order. We're talking tax returns, W-2s, pay stubs, bank statements. You don't want to be the buyer who finds the perfect house only to realize you're a few weeks behind on financing paperwork. This also, and this is important, this helps you figure out your buying power. You don't want to have an unrealistic budget and waste your time looking at homes you don't qualify for. This is also a good time to explain to your lender that you are only planning on buying when rates are at whatever percent it is that you've decided on. Ask him to use, for example, a 5.5% and 7.5% rate scenario to understand your range. Secondly, build a custom budget. Go beyond the online mortgage calculator. Look at your full monthly housing cost, including property taxes, which obviously are high in Texas, and also homeowners insurance, HOA dues, estimated utilities. Number three, define your target area. Narrow your focus to specific areas that align with your price point, commute, schools, and amenities. Start tracking listings now, not just active homes, but also price drops, days on market, what's going under contract quickly. This will train your eye for value when something good hits. Number four, build a relationship with a realtor now, not when the panic starts, not when homes are getting multiple offers again. Talk to a data-driven realtor who can track builder incentives, monitor early pricing shifts, advise you on offer strategy before the crowd returns. Now, hopefully it goes without saying that the data-driven, proactive approach is exactly what we do, and we would love to get connected. The best way to do that is through our Let's Find Home questionnaire. You will find that in the description section. Number five, line up your decision team. Who helps you make decisions? Spouse? Parents? CPA? Okay, get them involved now. Walk them through your price range, your why, and your game plan. You don't want emotional friction at the moment you need to act. Number six, understand rate locks and float down options. Some lenders allow you to lock in a rate today, then take a lower one if rates keep dropping before closing. So ask your lender what programs they offer. Number seven, create a saved search system. This is an area where we personally are extremely proactive with our buyers. We set up an automated MLS search, then we take it beyond that by building a custom personalized spreadsheet where we record literally every single new construction home in your target area. And then as you're reviewing this data, if you know you may be waiting a while, it's perfectly fine. What you want to do is pay attention to builders with a lot of inventory or who are just opening new phases. Builders with just a few homes left in a subdivision, okay, you just have to know those don't really merit your attention. Focus on ones that will realistically have homes several months into the future. Okay, now you're ready. You've done your planning. Let's talk about market dynamics. We know right now for every 100 buyers, you have 20 who are actively engaged in the market and 80 who are waiting to enter the market when you do. Now imagine what will happen if the Fed signals a major policy shift or the 10-year treasury yield drops significantly and lenders suddenly start quoting 5.5% instead of 7%. All right, those 80 out of 100 buyers, okay, they're all going to flood back in at the same time. So you have 5 times as many buyers in the market at that point. Well, let me give you a real world example of that. In January 2023, rates dropped from 7.08% to 6.09%. Okay, you ready for this? In about a month. All right, what happened? Well, according to Zillow, buyer demand jumped 37% in that window. And that spike pushed prices up in many metros by 3 to 5% in just 45 days. So your preparation is going to allow you to enter the market very quickly because you're prepared. The truth is, readiness is the difference between winning and missing out. Now, everyone says they'll be ready when the time comes, but only the people who prepare in advance actually are. In terms of when the time comes, let's talk about the Fed. Now, many buyers believe once the Fed cuts rates, mortgage rates will follow. So that's what they're watching for. They tune in when they hear about FOMC meetings, and if the Fed holds the rate steady, they return home buying to the back burner. I want you to know that's not going to be good enough for you to enter the market as quickly as you need to, because that's not how it works. The Federal Reserve doesn't set mortgage rates outright, okay, not directly, but its actions heavily influence them. And I've used this example before, but think of the Fed as dropping a massive stone into a still pond. Okay, those waves spread out and they touch everything in the financial world. Here's what actually happens when the Fed adjusts the federal funds rate. Okay, that's the rate banks use to lend money to each other overnight. It shifts expectations across the board. One of the biggest things it affects, the 10-year treasury yield. And that's the key benchmark mortgage rates are tied to. If investors believe the Fed will cut rates, treasury yields usually dip. But if Powell signals he's staying aggressive on inflation, yields stay elevated. It's not just the Fed's moves either. The bond market reacts to inflation trends and broader economic data. When inflation, especially in housing, looks sticky, investors want higher yields to offset the risk, and that drives mortgage rates higher. So while Powell isn't adjusting the 30-year mortgage directly, every move he makes sends a message, okay, and the market listens. In fact, lenders often price in expectations before the Fed makes a move. And that means if the Fed signals a future cut, rates may drop before it happens. So really watch for the Fed's rhetoric. Listen to all of the speeches the members make because the market often responds well before the Fed actually takes action. Now, I want to give you an example of this, okay? We all know about the COVID era when mortgage rates were super low. Inflation raged upward and the housing market went crazy. In her article, Gina Smielek explains that it became clear in early fall that fast inflation was proving to be more lasting, but the Fed pivoted toward rapidly removing policy support only in late November and did not raise rates until March. So in November, the Fed began discussing removing policy support. So even though they didn't raise rates until March, mortgage rates started going up very quickly in January. So just know that Fed rhetoric and the 10-year treasury yield will often act before the Fed actually moves. So it isn't just about being prepared, it's also about knowing when to act. Now, there is a real benefit to being strategic and planning ahead. When you've taken the time to clearly define your criteria, like what interest rates you're comfortable with, what market value makes financial sense for you. You're no longer reacting to the market, all right? You're guiding your own path through it. Writing those standards down matters, okay? It gives you clarity. It keeps you grounded when emotions and headlines try to sway your decision making. And when you've done the planning ahead of time, things like getting pre-approved, saving for closing costs, knowing which neighborhoods you're targeting, you're not just browsing, right? You are truly ready to buy. And that readiness is powerful because it opens up opportunities that others might miss. Now, here's what that means in practice. You don't need to chase the market or feel pressured to make a move before you're ready, but you can move decisively if the right home hits your radar. You've already set your standards, and you're in a rare position where you can say yes on your terms. And in today's environment where 80 out of 100 buyers are still sitting on the sidelines and 20 or so are actively in the game for a given home, right, that puts you in a much stronger position than most people realize. As sellers who need to sell might be more flexible than you think. If they say a serious qualified buyer who's ready to go, they may be willing to work with your numbers. And that's where preparation turns into opportunity. Like say you find a new construction builder offering a 4% fixed rate at a price that works for you. Boom, you're ready. And it ends up happening sooner than later. Either way, whether it happens before or as soon as rates or prices drop, the closer you can be to having your home type and area picked out, the more likely you'll be able to capitalize on the opportunity. Don't be afraid to buy early if your criteria are met, but don't be afraid to wait either. If you have any doubts about how effective negotiating can be when you're one buyer among 20 instead of one among 100, you definitely want to check out this video where we just scored $234,000 off the builder's list price. In the meantime, this is Wendy Pinnell, and I will catch you on the next video.